can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please remain standing for invocation by Reverend Dr. Bill Roscoe.
Thank you, Sheriff. Friends, in the first 5 months of this year, 107 law enforcement officers have died in the line of duty. 30 of those deaths were caused by felonious assault, including 20 by gunfire. One officer died in a wildfire as she attempted to evacuate residents. The rest were accidents, duty-related illness, and the results of injuries sustained on the job years ago. Every time a law enforcement officer puts on the badge, they put their lives on the line for the rest of us. And for that, we owe a debt of gratitude. On behalf of the citizens of the community, I want to thank you, deputies, officers, troopers, detectives, correction officers, probation and parole officers, and dispatchers. You and your service are sincerely appreciated. Join me in prayer. Almighty God, we thank you for this time to honor the fallen, to remember the sacrifice that they made so that others could live in peace and safety. We pray, God, that even now you would give comfort to those who mourn and to those whose hearts are aching with the pain of loss. May their strength and their hope. And God, we ask that you will protect those who today stand between the wicked and the innocent, giving them wisdom, courage, and peace. Lord God, we invite your presence here with us now, and we ask that you would bless this time in the name that is above all other names. Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated. Welcome. Thank you for coming this afternoon. My name is Sheriff Kieran Donahue, Canyon County Sheriff, and I am very honored to be emceeing this event with my co-partner, who this event 10 years ago was his brainchild, and that is our good, is it doctor or reverend? Is it reverend doctor? I can't, it's so new with his new PhD, I can't quite get, say it again, sir. Chaplain Dr. Bill Reverend Roscoe. He's a great man. We're very proud of Bill to be honored with a honorary PhD from Northwest Nazarene University, excuse me. So what an honor. I want to make sure I thank Hal Colburn for joining us once again. His beautiful rendition of the national anthem. Hal, we couldn't do this event without you. Thank you, my friend. Thanks for being here. Also want to thank the Caldwell Police Department, Drums and Bagpipes, and of course the Canyon County Sheriff's Office Honor Guard for presenting the colors. As Bill mentioned, this is a very solemn day. It's a day of remembrance. It's a day of gratitude, a day of sacrifice, and most importantly, it's a day of remembrance. That we take the time to hit the pause button in our extremely busy lives and to remember and to honor those who have given their life in the line of duty, and not just here in the state of Idaho, but throughout our nation. And quite frankly, to remember that without their sacrifice, we would not have the society that we enjoy today. And that's not to say that we don't have issues and hardships and challenges and pitfalls and threats of those who would do us harm and are full of criminality and nefarious activity. Our armed forces join us today in remembering the fallen officers who have been killed in the line of duty, and we, in return, honor and pay tribute to those armed forces who, without them and serving in the past and serving today, once again, we would not enjoy the freedoms that we have, each and every one of us in our daily lives. So if you see a serviceman here today, or you see one tomorrow or in the future, thank, man or woman, I should say, thank them for their service. This is our 10th year of having this event. 10 years ago, Bill and I had breakfast, and he asked me, what do you think about having a peace officer memorial in the western side of the valley? And that's how this was started. And I can tell you that it has grown immensely over the years. But it would not grow, and it would not be what you see before you today if it was not for the incredible committee and volunteers that make this happen. Bill and I may be here up front and center, but it's because of the volunteers that are actually seated among you and those who couldn't be here today that make this happen. From Caldwell Police Department, Canyon County Sheriff's Office, I can't even name them all. Indian Creek Plaza. There's so many, so it's because of them that we're able to do this, and I just want to make sure that those committee members know how much I deeply appreciate it, and I know I speak for Reverend Roscoe as well when we talk about that. You will hear from honored guests today. You will hear about sacrifice and what it means in their hearts, what it means to them and the men and women who have given their lives in the line of duty. We face, again, untold challenges and wickedness. It's among us every day. But because these men and women who are here today in uniform, and those men and women who are out on patrol today, who are working their posts, or will work it tonight, it's because of them that we can sleep just a little bit quieter. It's because of them that we know that, for the most part, our men and women in uniform will make it home to see their families at the end of that shift. And when that day comes that the next officer dies in the line of duty, and unfortunately that will happen, we know that. These men and women know that, and those behind me. It does not deter them. I can tell you it strengthens us knowing that it could happen. It strengthens us knowing that we're going to enter the battle to protect each other. Why we protect you. We're going to have each other's backs, and always have and always will. So thank you to the men and women of law enforcement. Thank you for doing what you do. And thank you for allowing me to be so honored to lead you in this battle. It is the greatest honor a person can can have in their lifetime, I can tell you. With that, I want to talk about some special guests here that have joined us for the last 10 years. Jen, I believe this is the third song you have written and helped compose to... Well, you have written them in the past. She's an incredible talent, the Meridian Children's Choir, their fearless leader, and she has joined us every year. And we are so honored. And she has written songs and helped compose just for this event. Imagine that. And we are honored that you would once again join us. So I know that you have a musical performance. We'd like you to ask your team to take center stage, and if you will. And then when you're done, Jen, if you would let the children and yourselves come up on stage. Thank you. We just want to show our appreciation from the Canyon County Sheriff's Office. And the two young ladies in the bottom here have gifts for each of you, so I'll turn it over to you, Bunny. Oh, I'm going to hand them to you. Okay, I get the honor. Coming back behind you guys. One more round of applause, please. That was beautiful as always. Thank you so much. Our first speaker today is Lieutenant Bill Gardner from Idaho State Police. Bill's a native of Idaho, who has been with Idaho State Police since 1999. Began his career as a trooper in the Patrol Division, working in the Idaho Falls area. In 2001, he transferred to Boise, where he moved into the Commercial Vehicle and Hazardous Materials Division. 2004, Lieutenant Colonel Gardner transferred to the Executive Protection Unit, where he managed all security operations for the governor, the Idaho Legislature, and members of the Idaho Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. In 2013, Lieutenant Colonel Gardner served as District 3 District Commander and oversaw all law enforcement operations for both Patrol and Investigation Divisions. In 2018, Lieutenant Colonel Gardner was promoted to Major and served as an ISP Area Commander managing law enforcement operations in Coeur d'Alene, Lewiston, and Twin Falls. Additionally, he oversaw the Idaho State Police Training Section and Advanced Academy, Commercial Vehicle Safety Section, the Executive Protection Section, Idaho State Police SWAT Team, and Idaho SWAT Team. Currently, Lieutenant Colonel Gardner serves as Deputy Director assigned as the Colonel's Chief of Staff. He is a Certified Ethics Instructor and Death Notification Instructor and teaches at the College of Western Idaho Law Enforcement Program, Idaho Post Academy, and the Idaho State Police Advanced Training Academy. Lieutenant Colonel Gardner received his bachelor's degree from Idaho State University and his master's degree from the University of Oklahoma. Now, I want to welcome you, Lieutenant Colonel, to the stage, and thank you for coming.
Thank you, Sheriff. Well, I'll tell you, I'm humbled by the music. It's been fantastic. Sheriff, I'm glad that you didn't take your first idea of you singing the national anthem and you let Hal do it, because you're not going to beat that. That was fantastic. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed the very first proclamation establishing this week in May as National Police Week. From the Oval Office of the White House, President Kennedy admonished the country to never forget. Ever since that day, those two words have rang true through the hearts and minds of law enforcement officers everywhere. The words "never forget" are enshrined on memorials all over the country. From the 9/11 Memorial in New York City to the Peace Officers Memorial in Meridian, Idaho. It is our solemn duty to never forget. We meet today to carry on President Kennedy's tradition that he championed 60 years ago this week. To never forget means many things. First of all, to the members of our communities. Never forget means understanding and appreciating the enormous sacrifices that officers make on a daily basis. They say that when it comes to officers, for every one complaint, there are over 1,000 outstanding acts of service that go unnoticed. I have the enormous privilege to work closely with these outstanding men and women every day. Their efforts are truly inspiring. I wish you could see what I see. I can't help but think of Officers Handel and Amos of the Pocatello Police Department, who just recently were shot while answering a call. Both of these brave men are currently recovering from their injuries. They walked into danger willingly, risking their lives and performing at a high level. For police administrators, never forget means that we should actively look for and highlight exceptional work when we see it. I truly believe that if we stop celebrating our heroes, we eventually have no heroes. I like to think of it as two words, as showcasing excellence. And some may say, well, what do you mean by showcasing excellence? And a pretty clear example I can give you is, if you're familiar with Alabama football coach Nick Saban, he has 7 national championships, which puts him in the conversation as arguably one of the greatest college football coaches ever to coach. Coach Saban says that showcasing excellence is why he does so well. And for example, let me give you kind of illustrate. If he has a new recruit that he brings in that he wants to get onto his football team, he brings them into his office and sets them on the couch, and his parents are on each side, and then in front of that couch is a coffee table. And on the coffee table are 7 national championship rings fanned out right in front of them. On the other side of the coffee table, it's a nice leather chair where Coach Saban sits, and then behind him is a display case with 7 national championship trophies. So imagine, if you will, you're a new recruit and you're sitting on this couch, and in front of you are these 7 national championship rings. One of the arguably one of the greatest coaches of your lifetime is sitting in front of you, and then behind this coach are 7 national championship trophies. Coach Saban says that is how he demonstrates and shows excellence. He showcases his excellence, and that's how he's able to do that. We, as police administrators, we owe it to our people to showcase their excellence. When we see things that they do that are exceptional, we need to highlight those things. If a football coach can do it, I think there's no reason why a police administrator can't do it. Finally, to never forget means just that, to always remember. To always remember those who have fallen. My wife and I joined a gym probably about 10 years ago. And in this particular gym, they have kind of some, obviously it's kind of a weight room, and then they have a little basketball court area. It's a single basketball court. And when we first went into this gym, we always saw this man in the corner of the basketball court playing basketball, and it looked like he was kind of playing ball by himself. We eventually learned that this man's name was Bruce, and we would find ourselves leaving the gym about the same time every morning. And as he walked past the front desk, the lady at the front desk would always say to him, "Bruce, who won the game today?" And Bruce would inevitably say every time, "Not me, Eric did." And it was odd because he was over there in the corner playing alone. And finally, after a number of weeks, I asked the lady at the front desk, "Hey, tell me Bruce's story." She tells me that a number of years ago, Bruce would bring his son Eric into the gym, and they would sit and play basketball. He would rebound for him. He was trying to prepare him for high school basketball. He would work on his shot. He would do everything that he could to help his son. And tragically, Eric was killed in a motor vehicle accident. And as a way to remember his son, to this day, Bruce still goes into that gym and in his mind plays one-on-one with his son, Eric. That to me is so inspiring that Bruce has found a way to never forget. It is our duty as well that we do everything we can to never forget the 74 officers who have lost their lives, whatever that takes to remember that. Families have their way, and as officers, we have our way. Let me close with these thoughts. Famous poet Henry David Thoreau once said to his best friend, "Don't let me live life without living life." To all of us here today, as we live our lives, it is vital that we never forget. God bless you, outstanding peace officers. You have our faith, you have our trust, and you have our support. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. And before I introduce our next guest, I just want to, and I'm remiss, I should have done this before I had the Lieutenant Colonel come up. Each year I reach out to people to speak at this event. And I'm always humbled and honored that the men and women who almost immediately returned my request with an absolute, I'd love to be there, I'd love to take part. And that's what you see here behind me today, and you'll hear from them all today. These are men and women who I truly respect, and quite frankly, I've worked with over my career as well, regardless of their position. And our next speaker is no exception. Our next speaker is United States Attorney for the District of Idaho, Raphael Gonzalez. Presently, Mr. Gonzalez serves as a court-appointed U.S. Attorney, a leadership position he has held since March of 2021. Previously, he served as the First Assistant United States Attorney, and before that, the Chief of the Office's Criminal Division. He joined the office in 1995 after serving as an Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Michigan, an office he joined from the Wayne County Prosecuting Attorney's Office in Detroit, Michigan. Mr. Gonzalez currently sits as an Executive Board member on the Oregon-Idaho HIDA, a committee member on the 9th Circuit's Jury Trial Improvement Committee, and serves as the National Delegate for the Idaho Chapter of the Federal Bar Association. He is a Senior Evaluator with the Executive Office of U.S. Attorney's Evaluation and Review Staff, and has previously served in that office's Criminal Chiefs Working Group. Mr. Gonzalez is a graduate of James Madison College at Michigan State University and the Wayne State University School of Law. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Sheriff, for that kind introduction. Thank you all for coming out on this wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Service and sacrifice. Those are two words that we're going to hear throughout today's presentations. We're here not only to celebrate the service, but to honor the sacrifice. And I stand before you as a prosecutor. I note with distinction Brian Taylor, who served as your county prosecutor for these many years. And together, we've worked in partnership with law enforcement here in Canyon County in our office throughout the state. It's been an honor for me personally to have worked with Sheriff Donahue for almost 25 years and with prosecutors throughout this state for those many years. When you talk about law enforcement, you talk about this week, oftentimes we look at what the individuals did, as they say in football, between the lines. What they did in service, when they put on their badge and they put on their gun like my grandfather did, and went out in the streets. You think about the calls for service, the danger, sometimes the boredom, and then the overexcitement. But what inspires me today, and what causes me to celebrate the service, is what they did outside the lines. So as I look out at the men and women here and think about those that have fallen, brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers, what they did outside the lines, outside their service dates, can be more important than that which they did during the day or during their night shift. Those people that volunteered their time coaching basketball, baseball, football, that were deacons in their churches, that served in soup lines, that donated their time to rake leaves for the elderly. It's those actions and those activities that really plant the seed and grow seeds within your community, that provides a way for our offices, your offices, and all these agencies to build what we call community trust. So it's not that we're out there during the day patrolling the streets, protecting and serving, but in the evenings and on the weekends, in church halls and on baseball fields, to grow our community trust, because the investment that we make there is just as important as the investment we make when we get in a car in the morning or when we go to the office at headquarters. And with that, I tip my hat to everybody that takes the time after work to do something, anything, to improve the community that they serve. So they're not somebody that's locked in a squad car that's just driving by a street, that they've never seen. They've walked that street. They grew up on that street, or they learned that street. They invest in midnight basketball. They work with disadvantaged youth. They teach after hours in schools or community ed. They truly serve. So as you go forth, and as we all go forth today, we have 365 opportunities each year to do one thing or another to build that community trust, to take our service outside the squad car, to invest in our communities. So what we do on a daily basis can make our communities that much better. So I encourage you all to first honor those that have fallen, to respect what they have done as officers, but also as people, as citizens, as community members, as community leaders. And I ask that we grow ourselves every day in service and in sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Those are great words and great points you just made about all the work these men and women in uniform do outside of law enforcement. And of course, these young people here today with the choir, how important it is to see these good men and women supporting people like themselves. So thank you very much. Our next speaker has spoke here before with us. She is a dear friend, a dear colleague. She is very well known in this state. She's certainly well known at that legislature. And I know she's finally decided that she's not going to go back to the legislature, but after 50 years of doing it, I think she's probably done her time. I'm not sure it's been that long, but it's probably seemed that long. Senator Lodge is, again, she is not just a dear friend to me and someone I have looked up to for many, many, many years. As well as her husband, Federal Judge Edward Lodge. If you're ever in his courtroom, you know what I'm talking about, and I have been. But she's been a friend to law enforcement every step of her career, every single step. And she had some hard discussions with us at times in her chambers or when we were in the Senate committee. But one thing she always did was respect the job you men and women do every single day and night. And she built her career to protect you and to give you the tools that you needed to make sure you could do your job. There's a whole list of things here, Patty, that I do need to throw out here. I apologize, but just a few things. She has several grandchildren. You may or may not know it, but she was an educator for 35 years in Canyon County. 35 years. She served on some of the most important committees in our state legislature. She's the only senator to serve as chairman of 3 major committees: Health and Welfare, Judiciary and Rules, which includes law enforcement, and Senate State Affairs. She is truly a remarkable person, and we will miss her at the legislature and her guidance, but we know she will always be a friend to those who wear the blue. With that, please welcome Patty Ann Lodge, Senator Patty Ann.
A little shorter than the rest of everyone here. I'd like to thank the sheriff for giving me the opportunity to come here today and have this chance to speak to you, and also to honor those that we have lost, those who have served before, those who are serving today, and young people, encouraging them to serve tomorrow. I heard last night that tomorrow, or one of this week, maybe it's tomorrow, they are adding 400 names to the national monument of the fallen peace officers. And you heard what the Reverend said about how many that we've lost this year. As a legislator, it's been very difficult for me to comprehend why there is crime. And it's kept me awake so many times Why do people commit crime? We have all the opportunities that we didn't have so many years ago, and yet we still have people that are committing crime. And as my dad would say, if you are encountering police officers in any way, or anyone in authority, and they ask you to jump, you say, how high and when do you want me to come down? And that's always been good advice that he gave to my brother and I, and that I've given to so many people. Because if you did that, we wouldn't have some of the incidents that you see on TV and that our law enforcement people have to encounter. My uncle, Howard Nalley, was a police officer in the most difficult, crime-ridden area of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he served there in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And what he had to do isn't anything to what our officers have to do today. And the different types of experiences and skills that you have to have. You have to be not only a protector of the community, you have to be a counselor, you have to be able to testify in court, you have to be a great writer, you have to be an athlete for sure, and you have to be organized and someone who really cares about the community. That's only a limit of what you are called upon to be. And how do we train our young people and give our officers today the training that they need in order to be able to fulfill the requirements of society today, what you are asked to do? I ask that you all become actively involved in who your legislators are. Who are your leaders? Get to know them personally. Get to have a relationship with them. If you have the opportunity, testify at the legislature. I really honor the fact that our sheriff and our state police and our county, our city people have come over to the legislature and talked to us, because we do not know what you encounter. And today I do see Representative Youngblood and Representative Julie Yamamoto here today, and I'd like to thank you for the work that you have done in the legislature to protect the blue. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Canyon County Sheriff's Office, the Idaho State Police, the United States Marshals, for the safety and security that they have provided to our family throughout the years. When our daughter brought her firstborn child home, she didn't want to bring him to our house because she was afraid for his safety. And our family grew up with that feeling of not being safe. And if it hadn't been for the sheriff's office, if it hadn't been for the state police, if it hadn't been for the marshal's service, I wonder sometimes what would have happened to our families. And when I see now that some people are going and protesting at the homes of our officers, it breaks my heart, and we must not continue to allow that to happen. We need to protect those who protect us, and we need to join together to make sure that that is not happening here in Idaho. For the service to our family, for those who have served, those that are serving now and those that are serving in the future, I thank you for the service that you give to everyone else. I thank you. And when I see a police officer walking up to a car at nighttime, not knowing what's in that car, I always say a special prayer for them, because I want them to come home to their families just like I want our family to be safe. So I wish you the very, very best. And I ask all of us to mentor a young person, mentor an adult who maybe does not have the same feeling that we have for how our police officers keep our state and nation free and give us the liberties that we have, and that we unify together to continue to support the blue. I have on today, and I wear it often, the bracelet that Kevin Holtree gave me. And we also have to remember those who are recovering from the injuries that they have received in service to us. So let's never forget as the Colonel said, and remember that it is our responsibility to make sure that our state is protected and the best place to live and work and raise a family. God bless you all, and thank you for your service to all of us here in the state of Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. So nice of you to join us today, and you're correct. I did see my good friend, Representative Rick Youngblood, who has also put in an awful lot of years over at that legislature, and thank you for your service, sir, and your beautiful wife. I would be remiss if I didn't introduce my beautiful wife, Jeannie. She's sitting here. She told me not to, but as you all know, I don't listen very well. Thank you, Jeannie. And Representative Yamamoto, I saw you in the crowd. Thank you. And I would like to take the time just real quickly to also introduce a couple of other guests that I've invited, and that is our Ada County Sheriff, Matt Clifford, in the front row. Thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you for leading your team. And of course, my good friend, Special Agent in Charge, Doug Hart from the FBI. Thank you, Doug, for joining us here as well. And the reason I want to point that out is we also have all of our Canyon County executive officers and contingent. We couldn't do this job alone. We couldn't do it as Canyon County Sheriff's Office. We couldn't do it as Nampa PD or Caldwell or Middleton or Parma or Wilder, etc. We couldn't do it as the FBI. We can't do it as U.S. Marshal Services, as the Senator mentioned. It takes a combined effort because we are stronger when we work together. And we're a force multiplier, and that's what it takes today in law enforcement. There's nothing we can do by ourselves. We have to have the assistance of our colleagues and our brethren, and we're so proud to be able to sit here with you today and have people here. Sheriff from Payette County, thank you for joining us, Mr. Sheriff Creech, for coming over. It's a great honor to have you over here. That's kind of why we did this in Western Canyon County, so we can have you all come from these outlying counties to join us, so appreciate that. And your last speaker today, my last speaker, I guess, is another good friend of mine who I've served with many years, Sheriff Samuel Holtz from Bonneville County. Sam became a sheriff, obviously, in 2020, but prior to that, he was the chief deputy. And like so many officers that we know throughout our state, we've served and worked together for many years. He worked for Bonneville County for the last 23 years and has 30 years of experience in law enforcement profession. Bonneville County is a full-service public safety agency with patrol, jail, civil, driver's license, and records functions, as well as special operation teams that include SWAT, dive, and search and rescue. Sheriff Holtz has experience in patrol, narcotics, special operations, and an emergency medical technician. In addition to leading the Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Holtz currently serves on several local and state boards, including Region 7 Behavioral Health, the Behavioral Health Crisis Center of East Idaho, Region 7 Crisis Intervention Team, the Digby 6, District 6 Emergency Communications Interoperable Governance Board, Behavioral Health Crisis Center of East Idaho Advisory Board, Idaho State Public Communication Commission, and the Idaho Behavioral Health Council Advisory Board. In January of 2022, Sheriff Holtz was appointed to the Board of Directors of the National Sheriff's Association. Sheriff Holtz and his wife Michelle have been married for 31 years. They have 4 sons, 4 granddaughters, and 1 grandson. And I can tell you that there's not a finer law enforcement officer or administrator in the state than our good friend, Sheriff Holtz. So Sheriff, with that.
I'd also like to recognize my wife, Michelle, who's here in the audience. I appreciate her being here. This is, it's difficult for me, but I do it because I have an obligation, just as several of the speakers have said today, to never forget. I'm going to speak a little bit about a day that changed my life in ways I didn't anticipate. I have gone to the funeral of fallen officers and deputies. I've experienced that. But on May 18th, 2020, just after 5 o'clock in the morning, I received a phone call about one of my deputies. At the time, I was a captain. And they told me he's been ran over and it's serious. I hurried and dressed and headed out the door, and I told my wife, I said, pray, just pray. And I got just a little bit down the street, and they called me again and said, it's not survivable. And so I had to call my sheriff at the time, Paul Wild, who had 42 years in law enforcement and had never lost somebody under his administration, and tell him that today was our day. Today was the day that we lost one. And it's painful. And I know some of you here have had that same experience. But it makes it just that much more real and that much more meaningful of why we are here today. Because you see, it wasn't how Wyatt died that mattered. It was how he lived. It was what he chose to do as a profession. He had served in the Air Force. He had a servant's heart. And he came and joined us because that's who he was. And I know if Wyatt was standing on this stage today, he would tell you that he died doing what he believed in. He died performing his duty. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, verse 8, we read, also I heard a voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said I, here am I, send me. That is what we honor today. Not how they died, but the fact that when the call comes, they step forward. And I pray that we always find men and women in our communities who step forward, who hold that line, that thin blue line between chaos and order. Because any society that loses that, loses its society. We have the obligation to never forget and to always remember our fallen. On Wednesday, we gathered at Wyatt's grave, the anniversary of his death, second anniversary. And his young daughter, who was an infant when he was killed, was there at his headstone to honor him. And the promise that we have made to that family is that every May 18th, we will be there at that gravesite to honor Wyatt and to never forget him. And that is my solemn promise. On May 18th, our agency will always have representatives there at his headstone to remember him. When Wyatt died, his procession covered the city of Idaho Falls. As we went from Ammon across, it took us almost an hour to move all the cars from where we held his funeral to where we interred him at Fielding Memorial. And every stretch of the way was lined with the citizens of our community. If any of you here in this audience that are wearing a uniform don't believe that you're supported, trust me, you are supported. They may not be the loudest voices in our community, but they are the ones who stand up for us and believe in us. So don't listen to the negative voices that are out there that are loud, because for every one of them, there are 100 that would run to help you. So always remember that. Don't lose the faith in our profession, because if we lose that faith in our profession, we will not have anything. It will all turn to dust. And that's what Wyatt would tell you also if he was standing here today, that he believed in what he did. I watched his work, looked at some of his videos and stuff after his death, and he was a consummate professional, new to the business, but already performing his duty fearlessly, which is what he did that night. The other thing I want to say is the Spartans, they had a culture of warriors, very different than our culture, some of the things that they did. But they believed in service to their community. They believed and they were hardened. And I think often of law enforcement when I think of the Spartans, because they would do such things, take such risk for their community. And at the scene of Thermopylae, where they held the Persian army, a 1,000,000-man army they held at bay for several days, 300 Spartans and a few additional warriors from some of the other Greek city-states. They stood there and held off a 1,000,000-man army. And at that site, there is a stone that says, "Go tell the Spartans, strangers passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." And when I first saw this quote, I always thought about the National Monument. If you haven't had the opportunity to be there, I suggest you go, where those thousands of names are on that wall. And what I would say to our community today is those names of those individuals. Go tell the passerby that in obedience to our laws, those names are placed on that wall. And that's where our heroes lie. And a community without its heroes, a country or a nation without its heroes, will fail. So remember that when you don your shield and go out and protect your community. It's my honor to be here with you today, and it's our obligation to never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And you're right, I was there that day of that procession 2 years ago. It was a tremendous outpouring of individuals and support of the community throughout southeast Idaho that was there to say goodbye to that young man. But not just say goodbye to that young man, but to support law enforcement in general, and specifically the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office. I was honored to take part in that. Next, we are going to do the honor roll of the officers who have died in the line of duty in the state of Idaho. And before I ask our executive officers up, there is another person too I want to recognize, and I'm sure there's many more. But a person who always has this theme that you've had before you of our speakers of support for law enforcement, regardless of whether it's soft or loud, or maybe not always as loud as the outspoken few who stand against us for whatever their own narrative is. But one person in our midst has always been a strong supporter and faithful to the men and women who wear the badge, and that's our Commissioner Pam White, who sits here today. And Pam, I just want to make sure you're welcome, and thank you for coming here today, and thank you for always supporting law enforcement, not just our office, but Nampa PD as a city councilwoman, and all the years you've given to self-sacrifice for our county. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. And now I'd ask the executive officers to please take their position at the tables with the roses, and I would ask my fellow executive officers from the stage to join me with them, and United States Attorney Raphael Gonzalez and Senator Lodge, if you'll take the podium.
Wyatt Christopher Mazer.
Kent Donald Swanson.
Greg Moore.
Joshua Eggleston.
Monty Leroy Matthews.
Lee Newbold.
Christopher John Hensley.
William J. Mann.
Scott Palmer.
James Brian Molson.
Philip Charles Anderson.
Linda Carol Huff.
Mark Arlen Stahl.
Dennis L. Remington.
Ronald W. Feldner.
William Deegan.
John T. Huston.
James Donald Miller.
Brent Jacobson.
James E. Simino.
William H. Hogue.
Wilson Conley M. Elms.
Douglas M. Dean.
E. C. Chuck Aston.
Samuel B. Buntlock.
Howard M. Schaefer.
Ross Flavel.
William J. Philpott.
Edward E. Davis.
Ralph T. Russell.
Walter Cox.
Vernal E. Keller.
Morley H. Cannon.
John H. Combs.
Bill H. Miller.
Vern M. Royce.
James A. Walker.
Stanley L. Larson.
Daniel Platt Woodland.
James M. Alexander.
Keith Judd.
Benjamin T. Newman.
Fred L. Peterson.
E. A. Hans Hansen.
Carl F. Siegman.
John C. Ferris.
George A. Method.
John C. Ferris.
Craig Taylor Brackett.
John Glenn.
Henry C. Givens.
F. F. Bob Hunter.
Robert S. Walton.
Harry Merrill.
Hugh Nichols.
Fontaine Cooper.
Louis J. Bancroft.
Thomas Russell.
Nathan H. Suter.
Leonard Roth Cummings Jr.
Sam Garbett.
Billy Withington Jr.
Harold J. Mossman.
Gordon A. Harris.
J. C. Sherritt.
Neil Simpkins.
Lafayette B. Hampton.
Charles H. Torrance.
Albert Percy Sweet.
L. J. Taylor.
Wallace Everett Cool.
W. J. McFadden.
Y. Walter Coffin.
John Henry Hayes. David Stoddard.
Thank you, executive officers. Would you please take your seats? As Reverend Roscoe pointed out, there have been 107 officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty so far this year, from January 1st through today, or at least through this morning. I hope it stays at 107 through today. Another couple of significant numbers that I'd like to point out to you today. In 2021, total line of duty deaths, 622. That's a staggering number. That was a 50% increase over the year before. Just think of that number, and think of 50% over the year previous. 61 of those died by auto accidents, 64 by gunfire, 480 medically, and 17 in other causes. We are in very tumultuous times. I'm going to ask that we all take a moment of silence, and followed by a song by our bagpiper. So please, if you'll take a moment of silence. Thank you. Well, once again, I just want to thank you all for coming. We're not quite done with our tribute to our fallen officers. As we close today, I will ask our honor guard to retire the colors, and when they do, I'll ask that you all stand when they do so. And when they retire the colors, I will ask the Children's Choir, Meridian Children's Choir, to follow in the procession as we exit the park. And we're going to go across the parking lot there to make one final tribute, and we'd ask you all to join us when we do so. You've heard some great speakers today, and people who can speak from the heart and to the very matter that we are all here the reason we are here, and that is to pay tribute and to remember, and has been said so often today, to never forget. Never forget the sacrifices these men and women have made, and never forget the sacrifices on a daily, hourly level that these men and women before you, and again those who are working today and who can't be here, the sacrifice they make every single day, not just for their community and their state and their nation, but the sacrifices they make for their families. And having said that, what we haven't probably touched on enough is the sacrifices that these men and women's families endure and go through and give so that their husbands, wives, sons, daughters, dads, moms can do what they do every day. And those sacrifices are not small. We don't make it to the games. We don't make it to the recitals. We don't make it to the weddings sometimes. There's so many things that these men and women miss, and their families miss having them there with them. And it's the families that have to pick up the pieces for the kids, for their friends, for their families, to let them know he or she would be here today, but they're out there protecting your right to sleep at night. And that's what they do. So it's not just the men and women in blue that carry that badge. Don't ever forget, those who are at home also carrying that badge vicariously. It is a great honor, once again, that I said that to lead men and women in battle, to lead this agency, and there's so many other leaders here today, and I just want to show my appreciation to them as well. Thank you to my speakers. Thank you for joining us. Your words of wisdom. The choir, you young people are our next hope and our next generation. We're going to depend on you. We're going to recruit you, quite frankly. Canyon County Sheriff's Office is on the top of the list, just so you know. But thank you, as always, for being here and for all the support. And with that, I would ask our honor guard to retire the colors. Please stand.